Caitlin Clark is the Voldemort if Sheryl Swoopes was Harry Potter. Not even saying like Caitlin Clark's playing well or Caitlin Clark's leading the team. She just completely omitted Caitlin Clark's name.
For almost a year now, WNBA legend Sheryl Swoopes has had it out for Caitlin Clark, from side comments and direct jabs to downplaying her achievements. Interestingly, while Caitlin Clark has remained silent about her harsh critics, ESPN sports analyst Stephen A. Smith has come to the Indiana Fever's guard's defense, this time firing back at the WNBA legend. Stephen Smith calls out Swoopes. The rise of Caitlin Clark in the WNBA has done well to unravel many agendas and bad blood going on in the league. The attention the Indiana Fever guard brought to the league has seen many take sides, with most of her harshest critics clutching at straws just to discredit her talent and achievement. Sadly, one of Caitlin's harshest and biggest critics who has been clutching at straws is WNBA legend Sheryl Swoopes. Her biased criticism and multiple attempts to discredit Caitlin's talent and achievements have shocked many who believed she should have been the rookie's biggest supporter. Very recently, she insinuated that there was trouble in the Indiana Fever's locker room because of Caitlin, but when asked who was having trouble on the team, she had no answer.
There's a lot of other shit going on that players are like, this ain't where I want to be.
Over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some new shit going on around there.
It's a lot. Yeah. So you have players that are very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't
want to be here.
This is where I want to be.
Yeah. Melissa,
what you said, there's a lot of shit going on. What kind of things do you feel?
I'm not in the locker room.
Okay. But just,
I'm talking about more social media.
Okay.
She has gone on to call Caitlin's impressive stats in her rookie a lot of a number, that is, not dominating. In any case, on an episode of her podcast, Queens of the Court, Sheryl Swoopes addressed the Indiana Fever's winning streak, praising their players for helping the team rise on the WNBA standings. Shockingly, Swoopes made sure to praise Lexi Hull, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston, intentionally omitting the biggest reason the Fevers rose on the standings, Caitlin Clark. The obvious bias and pettiness were clear to everyone, and while Caitlin, who had been silent all through her criticism, remained quiet about it, ESPN's Stephen A. Smith was disappointed and immediately called out the three-time WNBA MVP on the Stephen A. Smith Show. There is no way in hell you just accidentally left Caitlin Clark's name out of that soliloquy you dropped about the Indiana Fever, Stephen A. Smith said. The ESPN analyst used the opportunity to address the bias and hatred Caitlin has faced in her rookie season despite her success, publicly stating that all Sheryl Swoopes did with her statement was validate all speculations that Caitlin Clark is being hated on by the league. According to Stephen A. Smith, Sheryl Swoopes knew better, given that she is a basketball legend, a Hall of Famer with a lot of accolades, yet she has decided again and again not to do better. In any case, Sheryl Swoopes didn't let the sports analyst's comments slide, as she wasted no time in replying to Stephen A. Smith on social media. Swoopes responds. After finding Stephen A. Smith's comment on X, Sheryl Swoopes responded, immediately quoting the tweet by asking the sports analyst that since he talks about whomever and whatever on his podcast, why can't she talk about the people she wants to talk about on her podcast? Swoopes queried the sports show host's quick opinions off a short clip from her podcast, asking if he listened to the entire episode. She eventually revealed that the names she mentioned were players she had a personal relationship with, and as such, they deserved their recognition as well. Doing well to clear Stephen A. Smith's comments, she then doubled down by calling him a coward. In her words, the ESPN host was still in his feelings about Monica McNutt putting him in his place. If you've been following the WNBA, you would have seen the viral exchange between ESPN basketball analyst Monica McNutt and Stephen A. Smith on First Take. McNutt had left Stephen A. speechless after accusing him of not talking about the WNBA in the past 3 years, which turned out to be false, by the way, because no one talked about the Women's League and its stars more than First Take, whose executive producer is Stephen A. Smith. In any case, Sheryl Swoopes noted that she was ready to come on his show to address him for his comments about her bias, but it didn't take long after her response for Stephen A. to respond to the WNBA legend, this time causing a back and forth and some name-calling. Immature Cheryl. 2 days after Sheryl Swoopes came out to call Stephen A. Smith a coward, the ESPN analyst took to his podcast to call her out, and this time, he specifically called her immature. In his words, Sheryl Swoopes engages in levels of immaturity. Stephen A. addressed Sheryl's comments about him not listening to the entire podcast, and he confirmed that he did listen to it all, and not once did she mention Caitlin Clark. The sports show host asked why Cheryl's claims of having a close relationship with the Indiana Fever's players she praised had anything to do with her coverage of the Indiana Fevers without mentioning Caitlin Clark. Nobody told you to ignore other Fever players. If you're going to give the Fever all the credit in the world, how do you talk about the Fever without any mention of Caitlin Clark? Stephen A. Smith said. The First Take executive producers further explained that it was very immature of Sheryl Swoopes to come back at him like that over telling the truth, and claims the three-time MVP seems to get in her feelings when her professional objectivity is being questioned. Stephen A. doubled down by claiming she has lost her mind because she is putting her lack of professional objectivity on display, up for everyone to see. Well, not one to not have the last word. The WNBA legend then went to extreme lengths to prove that she has no problem with Caitlin Clark. What could Sheryl Swoopes possibly have done? Lies and defense. Following Stephen A. Smith's comments on the four-time WNBA champs, she instantly rushed to disclose private chats she had with Caitlin Clark back in February. In the interaction, Swoopes reached out to Caitlin Clark to clear the situation after she indicated that Clark played 5 years at Iowa and received an extra year of eligibility because of the COVID-19 outbreak to discredit Caitlin's NCAA all-time scoring record. She blamed the COVID-19 pandemic for making what she called an honest mistake and congratulated her for all she had accomplished. In response, Caitlin was mature in thanking her for reaching out, telling her she had no hard feelings towards her before thanking her for all she had done for women's basketball. Unfortunately, as honest as the conversation seemed to be, Sheryl Swoopes' actions since having that conversation with Caitlin haven't matched her words. She has in fact made what she called an honest mistake again and again, and it is starting to look personal. She has had enough history of pettiness and attacks on Caitlin Clark that it can no longer be called an honest mistake. History of pettiness. Once would have been an honest mistake. However, a history of discrediting and attacking Caitlin Clark unprovoked has shown that Sheryl Swoopes intentionally omitted Caitlin's name while praising the Indiana Fevers. As far back as Caitlin's time with the Iowa Hawkeye, Sheryl Swoopes wrongfully questioned the legitimacy of the Fever's guard's scoring record in college. Even after she was called out for lying and sent an apology to Caitlin, Sheryl Swoopes doubled down on her attempts to take a cheap shot at Caitlin Clark when she claimed the guard was only able to break the record she did because she was 5 years older than her competition.
How much more experience that gives you over other players coming in, right? So people say, like, he or she's killing them, but you have a 25-year-old playing against a 20-year-old. Like, you should be killing them.
This shot was also wrong because Caitlin had been exceptional since her first year, and in her final year of college, she was just 22. As a freshman in college, she averaged 26.6 points, 7.1 assists, and 5.9 rebounds per game, leading the NCAA Division I in scoring and ranking second in assists and three-pointers per game. Later on, Sheryl Swoopes pointed out that Caitlin Clark takes 40 shots a game, a false accusation because Clark in college averaged 22.7 shots per game, just 3 more shots per game than Swoopes averaged as a senior at Texas Tech. And while she was unsuccessful in all her attempts to discredit Caitlin Clark's accomplishments in college, Swoopes has been unrelenting in doing the same since she got drafted. She has continued to take cheap shots at the 22-year-old Indiana Fever's guard. Early into the season, she called Caitlin Clark, who has been on the receiving end of several hard fouls ever since Caitlin got into the WNBA, a bully.
But with Angel, she's a rugged girl. She's built for trying to bully. She's a bullier. No one feels sorry for the bullier.
She's not a bully. She's not a bully.
Oh, you probably just never seen the poster. She's bullying the veterans.
She's not a bully. Well, I mean, if you want to talk about bullies, we can talk about every time Caitlin has the ball, she pushes off.
Oh, no.
I'm just saying.
After the Indiana Fevers made the playoffs, she went on to state that the team would have still made the playoff without Caitlin, a team that last made the playoffs in 2016. I think Caitlin Clark has done, exactly what was expected of her with Indiana. Is Indiana in the playoffs right now without Caitlin? When you look at the overall team, like the pieces that they have, without question, Indiana has better players than Chicago from top to bottom. No doubt about it, Sheryl Swoopes said. She has again and again claimed Caitlin is undeserving of the WNBA Rookie of the Year award, despite the impressive performance she gave in her debut season in the league. Well, at this point, it is clear that Stephen A. Smith has a point because it just doesn't sit well. That a legend of the game, in fact, the first player signed to the WNBA would be petty and continue to be biased towards a generational talent like Caitlin Clark. In any case, basketball fans online have had a lot to say about Stephen A. Smith's comments towards Sheryl Swoopes, with a user commenting, "Not mentioning Clark is as unbelievable and ridiculous as mentioning the Chicago Bulls and forgetting to mention Michael Jordan." Another user commented, "Yeah, Cheryl, you know better. Stop dissing that girl and just embrace it." Well, there you have it. If you enjoyed this video, the next video on your screen is worth your time.